Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we kind of take a deep dive into all sorts of things.
That's right.
We find all these different sources, and then we kind of try to pull out all the important stuff.
The good bits, yeah.
Yeah, and then, so you don't have to, right?
Exactly. A little shortcut, and we're looking for those aha moments. You know, those moments where...
Aha moments, those are the best.
You know, those little insights that make you think differently.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And today... we are diving into, talk about foundational stories, right?
So, yeah.
We are going way back to the ancient epics.
This is the bedrock of Western lit right here.
Yeah, we're talking about, Homer's Odyssey, Homer's Iliad.
Of course. God, I have Homer.
We've got some YouTube sources we're looking at, talking about those.
Yeah.
We're going to the world of Beowulf, taking a look at that.
A little bit of Beowulf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Online, kind of a perspective on that. Academic perspectives on Homer and Virgil.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to look at fate versus free will.
Always a good one.
A classic.
Always a good one.
Yeah. Timeless.
A university guide to Virgil's Aeneid.
Right.
And even some glimpses into Dante's Inferno.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we've got...
a lot on the table.
Got a lot going on.
That's a big table.
A huge table. But our mission is simple.
Okay.
We want to give you... the listener.
The learner.
The learner, yes. A solid understanding of these classics.
Right.
And packed with those aha moments.
Right.
So that you can feel really well informed about these ideas that are, they still echo today.
They do.
They do.
Yeah, and I think that's a key thing here for, you, our listener.
Yes.
This deep dive is really going to offer you, I think, like a clear path through these monumental works, They're big, they're daunting.
They're huge.
But we're going to try to hit the high points.
Yeah.
And what we're really going to be emphasizing is these enduring themes.
Of heroism, fate, societal values, and to show you why these ancient stories, they're not just museum pieces.
Right.
They still resonate today, and we're not going to overwhelm you with, endless details and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just the good stuff.
It's just the good stuff, just the important stuff.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
With the Iliad and the Odyssey.
Okay.
It is, it's kind of mind-blowing to think about this, right?
Yeah.
And some of our YouTube sources kind of point this out.
Yeah.
These weren't just, like, bedtime stories for the ancient Greeks.
Oh, no.
This was fundamental to their culture.
Yeah. This was like their DNA.
Right.
This was their operating system, right?
Yes. And even, it's crazy. They came before formal written law codes.
Wow.
Think about that.
That's amazing.
So essentially,
the law.
Yeah, these epics served as like their moral compass.
Yeah, their ethical framework. We even see, like, Athenian orators, pulling out lines from these epics in their legal argument.
I know, it's crazy.
Trying to sway opinion. It's fascinating.
It is fascinating.
How central these were to their entire worldview.
Their entire worldview.
Yeah. And what's so fascinating to me is how these narratives, they gave the ancient Greeks this shared cultural vocabulary. They weren't just entertaining.
Right.
They were instilling this common understanding of virtues, vices, what it meant to be a good person, what it meant to be, a bad person, what to aspire to, what to avoid.
And when we think about the Iliad, I think it's really important to remember that it zooms in on a very specific period, right?
Right.
The final year of the Trojan War.
The final year of the Trojan War.
Which, by the way, lasted a decade.
Yeah, 10 years.
10 years.
10 years.
And also, another interesting thing is that, probably the most famous part of that war, the Trojan horse.
Right.
Isn't actually
not in the Iliad.
A central element.
No.
In the Iliad or the Odyssey.
No, that comes later.
Yeah.
That becomes a big thing later.
And
especially with Virgil and the Aeneid.
Right. And while, historians still debate whether the Trojan War actually happened exactly as Homer described it.
Right. It's still an open question.
Yeah. Did it really happen?
Yeah.
But the general consensus seems to be that its lasting power comes from its incredible
impact,
cultural and narrative impact.
It's about the story.
Right.
It's about the meaning.
Yeah.
It's about, what it tells us about ourselves and our own struggles.
It gave the Greeks I mean, like a powerful origin story.
It did.
A way to understand their identity.
Yeah. Shared identity, their history. Yeah, where they came from, their values.
Regardless of its, like, literal truth.
Right. Yeah. And digging into the Iliad itself. I mean, some just incredibly raw themes emerge immediately.
Right away.
Right from the beginning.
Yeah.
The whole thing kicks off with the wrath of Achilles.
Yes, the wrath.
I mean, and we're not just talking anger here. Yeah. This is deep-seated rage.
Yeah,
this is primal.
It's like a conflict between his personal honor and the demands of his society.
Exactly. Yeah. And we also see like these really unflinching depictions of the brutality of war, the sheer horror of war. Yeah. I mean, there's this one passage we were looking at that describes the death of Asios.
Yes.
And it compares him to a falling tree.
Oh, wow.
And he's ending his life screaming, clutching at the bloody dust.
Oh, gosh.
It's a stark image.
Yeah.
And it just shatters any romanticized notions about ancient warfare.
Yeah.
This is brutal. This is bloody.
Yeah, and the characters they're so
oh my gosh,
richly flawed and complex.
They're so human.
Yeah.
I mean, they're heroes, but they're
messed up.
They're messed up. They're just like us. Right. They make mistakes. They have
Take Agamemnon.
Oh, yeah, Agamemnon.
The leader of the Greek forces.
Right.
He can be so, like, fierce and dominant in battle.
Right.
But then when he's wounded, his pain is likened to, like, a woman in childbirth.
Right.
Which one of our academic sources points out, like, would have been seen as a huge insult.
A huge insult.
To a male warrior.
Right. You don't compare a warrior to a woman giving birth. Yeah. It's not done.
But it kind of hints at this, like, hidden vulnerability underneath his, like, aggressive exterior.
It's like he's got this, like, chink in his armor.
Yes. And then you have Achilles. Who spends, like, a good chunk of this tome.
Yeah, he's just sulking.
Sulking in his tent.
Yeah, he's like a big baby.
Like a kid who didn't get his way.
Exactly. Yeah, like I didn't get my war prize, so I'm gonna go sulk. But then he turns into this unstoppable force.
Yeah, after Patroclus.
Yeah. It's like a switch flips.
Yes.
And he just goes berserk.
And what's so insightful about that sulking, right?
Yeah.
Is the fundamental choice that he's wrestling with.
Right.
His mother, Thetis, she reveals his fate.
Yeah, she's like, look, kid, you've got two options. You can stay here in Troy, you can fight, you can achieve everlasting glory, but you're gonna die young.
Yeah.
Or you can go home, live a long life, but nobody's gonna remember you.
And it's so human. Right.
It is.
Like this desire for meaning and remembrance versus our natural instinct.
Self-preservation.
For survival.
Yeah. And it's heavily influenced by the Greek view of the afterlife at the time, which was, not great.
Not great.
It was pretty bleak.
Yeah.
I mean, if you remember in the Odyssey, when Odysseus runs into Achilles in the underworld.
Oh, yeah.
Achilles famously says, like, I'd rather be the lowliest farmhand on earth than a king among the dead.
Among the dead.
So they did not have a good view of the afterlife.
No, they really didn't.
And that really, I think, adds a lot of weight to Achilles' choice.
Yeah. So then we shift gears.
Okay.
We go to the Odyssey.
Okay.
And the atmosphere changes quite a bit.
It does.
It does, really.
It's more of an adventure story.
Yeah.
It's a journey.
It's a journey. It's about coming home.
Yeah, about homecoming and resilience.
Resilience. Yeah.
And
And cunning.
Cunning.
Yeah.
Very cunning.
Yeah.
And it's often embodied by Athene, the goddess.
Yes.
Who's like always there.
She's his guide.
Yeah, she's like his guardian angel.
Yeah, his protector.
Yeah, looking out for him.
Yeah, the epic really emphasizes how Odysseus uses, like, his wit and strategy, his brain.
Yeah, he's not just a muscle man.
No,
he's using his head. To get out of these crazy situations,
to overcome these crazy obstacles.
Right. Yeah. And there's this recurring theme that I find really fascinating.
What is that?
Where cleverness triumphs over physical power.
Oh yeah.
There's even figures like Menelaus, you know, when he looks back on the Trojan War, he's kind of like, maybe brains over brawn.
Yeah.
Maybe, the comforts of home are more valuable than the glory of battle.
Right.
It's this interesting kind of shift in perspective that we see in the Odyssey.
And of course, we can't overlook Penelope.
Oh, Penelope.
Odysseus's wife.
Yeah.
I mean, she's not just some passive figure waiting for rescue.
No, not at all.
She is
incredible.
Portrayed as so intelligent and resourceful.
Yeah, she's holding down the fort.
Yeah.
I mean, for years, she's fending off these suitors with clever schemes and just unwavering loyalty.
And it's not even just about waiting. Right. When Odysseus finally comes home, disguised as a beggar, she doesn't immediately fall into his arms.
Oh, no.
She puts him through a series of tests.
Yeah, she's like, prove it.
Yeah.
Prove it's really you.
Demanding proof of his identity.
Yeah, she's not messing around.
Which I think really highlights her equal standing.
Absolutely.
In their relationship.
Yeah, they're partners.
Yeah.
They're equals.
And her own intelligence and resilience kind of mirror his.
Absolutely.
It's so interesting too to see how Odysseus has this almost ingrained habit of creating different identities and telling these elaborate stories.
He's a storyteller.
Yeah.
He's a master of disguise.
He is.
He's
sometimes it's strategic, right?
Yeah.
It helps him.
Advantage.
Yeah. But there's also this sense that he's just constantly shaping and reshaping his own narrative.
Right.
Yeah.
And it really raises this question, right?
Yeah.
What's Odysseus's real identity?
Right.
Is this a sign of insecurity?
Right.
Or is this just him being super adaptable and strategic?
Or is it both?
Maybe it's both. It's complex,
and
it speaks to the fluid nature of identity, and the power of storytelling.
Yes, and those themes really continue to fascinate us too.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. We're still trying to figure out who we are and how to tell our own stories.
Yeah. Okay.
All right. So
we're gonna journey north now.
Okay.
Let's talk about Beowulf.
All right, Beowulf.
So our online exploration kind of tells us that this is the only complete epic poem.
Wow.
That we have.
That's amazing.
Surviving from Old English.
Just the one?
Dating back to around the year 1000.
Okay.
So
that's old.
It's old.
It's old.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it follows this heroic warrior.
Okay.
Who, he defeats these monstrous threats.
Okay.
Eventually he rises to become king.
Mm-hmm.
And ultimately he meets his end battling a dragon.
Classic.
It seems like a fairly straightforward monster slaying tale.
Right. On the surface, it's kind of like a popcorn movie for the Middle Ages.
Yeah.
But what's really fascinating about Beowulf is its influence.
Yes.
It's just incredibly profound and lasting influence on fantasy literature.
Fantasy, yes.
This is like the granddaddy of so many fantasy writers.
Yeah.
Tolkien, for example.
Oh yeah.
He was hugely influenced by Beowulf.
And it's not just about direct influence on plot structures or anything. But
it's deeper than that. It's about the archetypes.
The archetypes.
This brave warrior facing extraordinary evil.
Yeah.
This is the foundation for so much of modern fantasy.
It seems like Beowulf has also sparked some really interesting reinterpretations.
It has.
That kind of challenge our initial understanding.
Right. We tend to think of these old stories as being very straightforward.
Right.
But Beowulf has been reinterpreted in some really interesting ways.
Like the novel Grendel?
Oh, yeah.
By John Gardner?
John Gardner, yeah.
He retells the whole story from the perspective of the
monster.
Which is
a big shift.
A huge shift in how we approach these ancient narratives.
Absolutely.
It is.
It's like we're not just taking the hero's word for it anymore.
Right.
We're seeing things from the other side, and I think that reflects this broader change in storytelling and even in our societal views. It's not just about black and white, good versus evil anymore.
Yeah, and the monster isn't just this pure evil force.
Right.
It's a complex individual with its own motivations and its own suffering.
Right.
Yeah.
Which
really does make you think about
it challenges our
own definitions of good and evil.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's not so simple anymore.
Okay, so now we're going to sail south.
Okay.
to the world of the Aeneid and its deep connection to like Roman identity. Our university guide reminds us that Virgil was writing during the reign of Emperor Augustus, which was a period of, relative peace and intense empire building.
After all that civil war.
After all of that civil war.
Yeah, Rome had been through a lot.
Yeah, so this historical context feels absolutely essential for like understanding
absolutely.
the Aeneid's themes.
Yeah, you can't really separate the Aeneid from its historical context.
Yeah.
I mean, Virgil is very much a product of his time. And his portrayal of Roman identity is fascinating because it's so layered.
Yes.
And even contradictory at times.
Yes, it is.
On the one hand, he's really emphasizing the importance of duty.
Yes.
To the Roman state. This idea that like being Roman requires a certain amount of sacrifice.
Yes.
For the greater good of the empire. Right. Yeah. But there's this real sense of ambivalence too, this duty often comes at a very high personal cost.
Yes.
It causes immense suffering for characters like Dido and Aeneas himself.
And that tragic love story between Dido and Aeneas really brings that conflict.
Oh, it's heartbreaking.
Into sharp focus.
Yeah, I mean, she's the queen of Carthage.
Yeah.
She's powerful.
Yeah.
She's in charge, and she falls for Aeneas, and they have this like passionate love affair.
Yes.
But Aeneas is driven by this destiny.
His destiny, yes.
To found Rome.
Yes.
And so he's torn between his love for Dido and his duty to the gods.
And to Rome.
Yeah. And ultimately
duty wins.
Yeah. But not without a lot of heartbreak.
Yeah. And even in the underworld, when Aeneas's father, Anchises, shows him like this prophetic vision.
This glimpse of the future.
Of Rome's like glorious future.
The golden age.
The golden age.
Under Augustus.
Yeah.
It's meant to be this like inspiring moment.
Yeah.
But there's this underlying question, right? What's the price? Of this imperial destiny? I mean, Aeneas has to like suppress his own desires, his own feelings. He almost loses himself. In service of this grand historical purpose.
And it's so interesting that like the second half of the Aeneid, which focuses on like these brutal battles.
For Italy.
For control of Italy, it's not nearly as widely read or discussed.
It's not. It's kind of the forgotten half of the Aeneid. I mean, everybody remembers the journey. Everybody remembers Dido. But the second half is it's almost like a different book. It's much more focused on like warfare.
And conquest.
And it introduces like key figures. Like Turnus, who kind of embodies like an older, maybe more traditional heroic ideal. In the face of this like emerging Roman future.
He's kind of like the old guard. He's the guy who's trying to hold on
to the
old ways. And it's interesting because he's not just a villain. He's got his own reasons for fighting. He's got his own sense of honor, his own code.
But ultimately he's unable to adapt to this new world order. Rome represents.
Now, a thread that seems to run through so many of these ancient epics is this timeless question of fate versus free will.
That's a big one.
This is the classic literary conflict.
And it really compels us to think about the choices that these characters make and how they might mirror our own lives.
I mean, do these legendary heroes truly have control over their destinies? Or are they just puppets?
Are they just playing out a script that's already been written?
Written for them. By the gods?
By fate. I mean, it's a question that has haunted humanity for millennia.
And the epics, they don't really give us any easy answers.
No, but they give us a lot to chew on.
A lot to think about.
They give us food for thought.
Yeah.
They force us to grapple with these really complex questions.
We see these characters grappling with prophecies.
Right.
With divine interventions.
Right. The gods are always messing with them.
Yeah.
You know?
And their own deeply felt desires.
Right.
And it just makes us wonder, like,
right.
to what extent are our lives fixed?
Yeah, or are they self-determined?
Yeah.
Are we in control?
Are we in control?
Or are we,